Hello and welcome to another episode of the Future Hospitality Podcast. I'm your host, Jeremy Wells, joined today by co-host Dustin Myers. We are partners at Longitude, a hospitality branding and design group. At Future Hospitality, our goal is to interview the brightest minds in the industry, gathering insights, ideas, and inspiration to share with you. If you enjoy the podcast, please be sure to leave us a review. Thank you for your support. In this episode, we speak with Atit Jariwala, founder and CEO of Bridgeton, a real estate company specializing in boutique hospitality investment, development, and operations. Bridgeton is dedicated to innovation in hospitality through expressive design, uncommon experiences, and exceptional service. During our chat, we'll discover the secret to Atit's success, challenges he's overcome along the way, and how he and his team create incredible experiences at each of their properties. Well, let's go ahead and jump in. Atit, thank you so much for joining us today. We're so excited to have you on our podcast.
Yeah, great. Thank you for having me, Jeremy and Dustin. I'm really excited to be on this.
Yeah. So we first met you at HD Expo a couple months ago, and you were on a panel there, and you just had a lot of really interesting ideas and information you were sharing. So we just wanted to bring you on the podcast so our listeners could get some value from that as well. So
great.
But before we dive into kind of the meat of the conversation, I'd love to just hear a little bit more, learn a bit more about you and about Bridgeton, and kind of what your career journey was like and how you got into the field that you're in, and just a little bit more about that.
Yeah, for sure. So my background is that I actually grew up in a town called Bridgeton, Missouri. So not close, but not too far from you guys. My parents managed in Econo Lodge Motel in Bridgeton, and I grew up there. And so that kind of, and I helped them out with all the chores that it would take to manage a hotel. And what was great about it is that we had a swimming pool. So I got to swim in the pool, but it really got me into the general real estate and hospitality world, really from the time I could walk. And I couldn't shake it. I went to undergrad out east and to Yale University, and when out of undergrad, I worked in investment banking in New York City and in the real estate groups there because they liked that I had some level of understanding in real estate. And then I only did that for 3 years, and then I worked at a real estate development firm that focused on hospitality and other real estate, and that's kind of really where I got into it and started loving it a lot. And I've been in that, and then I went to business school and started this company Bridgeton, which I just took my learnings from those prior experiences and really tried to create a firm that I thought could be my own, but focused on hospitality. Really, kind of the hospitality was going to be a core strength. So that's kind of what got me here today.
Yeah, that's a really cool overview of the journey. Like, what was when you were starting Bridgeton, and you said you went back to school, and kind of like, what was it like building that from scratch and like getting the team, the right people on board? Like, how did you, what did the first few years of that business look like?
Yeah, sure. So I did so when I was in business school, I actually did an internship at a company called CIM Group, which is a pretty large investor of real estate. And while I was there, I met my first hire and my partner now, Akash Sharma. He was working there, so he was an analyst or an associate there, and I was senior to him, and we were working on deals for a few months. And so when I left business school, that was in between my first and second year of business school. When I left business school, I was able to recruit him. And he joined me. And so he was my first kind of key person. And then outside of that, I didn't take a scientific approach. I think if I restarted Bridgeton today, I'd probably be more scientific about it. I kind of took a kind of stroll and find great people approach. And so Jeff Harrelson joined me next, and he had a long history and track record in real estate investing, and kind of like more of a corporate person. I had retired from HSBC in a senior role, and then I met him through an attorney, and I kind of built the firm with great people that I thought could add value versus a more scientific approach, where I'd say, hey, okay, well, we need someone that has, great architectural background, great investment background, great development background. Let's bring all these pieces together and build a firm together. But at the time, there wasn't any money. So I kind of went through and struck deals how I could and kind of went and leveraged, outsourced firms and whatnot as much as possible at the beginning.
So Atit, what was the first project that you guys took on together?
So the first project we did was actually so it wasn't a hospitality project. So the first project we did, and what happens was, so a good question. I think sometimes in hospitality, like especially the first deal can be a little hard to get financing because debt financing is hard. Finding investors is a little bit more challenging until you have a track record. So the first deal we did was actually an apartment community in New York City that we bought and ended up doing really well. And so the investor that ended up buying that with us ended up allowing us to purchase our first hotel as well because we did so well on that project. And so the hotels we ended up buying were, there was a hotel project here in Boston, that we ended up buying that was a limited service hotel that we were able to renovate into more of a boutique feeling hotel. And that kind of got us started here.
Yeah, that's really cool. I'm curious kind of a little more about your childhood influence and growing up in the industry. What were the aspects of hospitality that you really wanted to tap into with your life work?
Aspects of my childhood that tapped into my life work. So I'd say that I would say actually part of my childhood in the hospitality business in my father being very cost conscious. We grew up in an Econo Lodge and, we were trying to save dollars as much as possible. And, I'd actually say the learning I had is it's sort of like, it was both like, I wanted to be like him in terms of understanding, economics and math and making sure things work really well. But on the other hand, it took me a few years to shake some of that learning. So I originally went into, so for the prior firm I was with before Bridgeton, I was a partner there. I became a partner there very quickly. And we ended up buying a bunch of hotels and whatnot, primarily focused, on franchised and branded hotels. Mm-hmm. And that made sense to me growing up because it's like, well, I'm running hotels as a business of just selling hotel rooms as almost like a commodity. It's like, it's not my playbook. I'm not looking to create experiences. I'm not looking to create a lifelong memory. I'm providing shelter for someone for a night or two or three or whatever. And in that case, it was creating something like basically trying to save as much cost as possible. Because it's like, well, I'm a branded hotel. Like, why would I overspend? And in fact, one of the first deals I did in New York as part of that other company was buying a franchised hotel and saying, hey, it's in New York City. Why don't I upgrade the sheets and linens and stuff because the rate is so high and maybe I can get a rate improvement. And the brand came back to me and said, hey, you can't do that. Thank you for upgrading and giving nicer sheets and soaps, but that's not the brand standard. And I'm like, but I'm charging triple what the brand standard rate is.
You're making the other ones look bad.
Yeah, no, exactly. Which I thought that was silly. I'm like, you're not like saying good job, and so that was probably the biggest lesson, saying, okay, Atit, maybe, the childhood lessons you learn about like maybe improving and cost cutting won't work. Maybe you can't do branded hotels, like that's not for you. And I think that was the start of me focusing on independent properties because I realized that, we could give a better guest experience. So I'm sort of answering your question. Like my lesson I learned is that if I want to be in this branded hotel space, you probably want to be pretty cost conscious, like the way my father operated. But I think the way I operate now and the way we operate our hotels is we operate smartly. Like, we don't want our customers to feel ripped off, which is how I kind of felt back then, where I'm a branded hotel and they're used to paying, $50 a night, for a Comfort Inn, call it, in St. Louis, or $60, and we're charging $200. And, and like, it just, we got a lot of customer complaints. They're like, why am I paying so much? By the way, the room is smaller. There's no amenities. There's no swimming pool. There's no gym, right? It's New York City for those types of products. And I now have to do the same sheets and soap. So anyways, I've learned that, like, in order to really, and maybe this is a conversation for later, but I've learned that in order to really get customers happy, is that I gotta give them a product they want.
Yeah.
And that means creating my own story.
Yeah, definitely. Not to age you or force you to kind of age yourself, but when you were doing these branded properties, like what year was that, or when you started doing those?
Yeah. So that was like 2005, 2000 to 2008.
Okay. So like, I'm curious, like, as you were, because, when you started out with those branded properties, and then when you fast forward to when you started Bridgeton, like, what sort of shift did you see in like the guest and traveler preferences to where, maybe the appeal of a branded property was becoming less so in travelers, and they're more looking for these boutiques? Like, what was that transition like in consumer mindset that you saw?
Yeah. So, I mean, what I saw is that, in Europe, at least at the time, and in most of the world, independent hotels and like boutique hotels and independent hotels were more of the norm than the branded hotels. The U.S. is like so concentrated in brands, and we went back and like looked at the history of like hospitality in a way. And the first hotels in the U.S. really were, or really the first places you would stay would be in these rooms above like a bar or a restaurant, and they were like more social places. And so it's like, hey, you came into a city, you found a room, but this is before hotels existed, and you found a room and you like stayed there usually above a bar or a club or something like that. And you may stay there for a long time because you didn't want to get a house and you were traveling a lot. And what happened is, when the highways were created and Holiday Inn came in, because they were kind of one of the pioneers in this, they started pumping out these hotels. And eventually, over the decades, that Holiday Inn became Holiday Inn Express. And that Holiday Inn Express box is what defines a lot of hotels today, or did, where it just became, like I was saying before, a commoditized place to stay versus a social space. And what I started, to answer your question, what we started seeing like a decade ago is that there started being a shift from back to like how hotels were meant to be experienced, which is not just a commoditized room. And of course, there's a need for that, of course, for people that just want a room to stay in for a night. But for many people, it's about that bar scene and that restaurant scene and kind of that cool space. And we started seeing 10 years ago that, hotel bars are cool bars. Hotel restaurants are the cool restaurants. Like, they stand for more than a standalone storefront, a retail storefront. They stand for something much larger and grander. And so we started focusing on that. Like, how can we make an impact? And so a lot of our hotels, you'll see the Bridgeton hotels, we're not typically in like the city center. So we're not in New York City. We're not in Times Square. And part of that is, we as a hotel can't make a big impact in that neighborhood. There's just so many of them. We have a hotel in Greenwich Village in New York, and we're one of the few hotels in Greenwich Village, maybe 2 or 3 other hotels in Greenwich Village in Manhattan. And we have our big hotel in Tribeca, which is part of like a blossoming art scene there. And we are an anchor in that neighborhood. And so for me, I found that people like being associated with the larger hotel presence in the neighborhood. And people started feeling like, hey, I can go to the rooftop bar and I can go to the cocktail lounge and I can go to the restaurant all in one location. And it's kind of, and that kind of vibe and atmosphere and and everyone can feed off, the energy can feed off each other versus going to a restaurant and then walking across the street and going to a bar and et cetera. So I think people really like that. And we started seeing that about a decade ago. And that's been our focus.
Yeah, I think it's really cool that you're tracing it all the way back to like the earliest hospitality concept in this nation. And it kind of reminded me of like the John Wayne movies where they just camp out for as long as they need to. And it's kind of just a completely different experience than what we saw after that.
Totally. I mean, the way we all have grown up really is where it's more, especially in the United States, where it's just a commoditized room in a way. And, great, trailblazers like Ian Schrager and other folks like him Chip Conley, they really showed us that hotels can be cool and interesting and unique. And a lot of more people have followed those footsteps. And I'd say that more recently, it's been clear to me that is the strategy of the future. I mean, I think that, probably going back 4 or 5 years, certainly it's accelerated dramatically in the last 2 years. I've personally seen people spending a lot more of their income on experiences, like, whereas a business trip, 8 years ago, even, to Columbus, Ohio, I may have just said, hey, listen, I'm going to Columbus, Ohio. I'm landing. I got this meeting in this location. Where's the closest hotel so that I can go to the meeting and, stay in this, basic hotel and go to and come back. Whereas now I hear more and more stories of people saying, oh, I'm going to Columbus, Ohio. Where's the cool hotel in Columbus, Ohio? Okay, cool. We're going to go stay at that cool hotel. And yeah, it's only 20 minutes away, and great. I get to not waste an evening. And I feel like that's a big deal with today's Instagram world. They don't want to waste a moment. They want to be special. And they want to say they haven't and show their friends. They got to showcase their friends now, which they didn't before. Say that, hey, we experienced life really great. And I think that's only accelerating where people don't want to waste the day. They don't want to waste an opportunity to experience something. And they're willing to spend more of their net worth and their income for that experience. Not to say that they're going crazy, but they're willing to spend more than I would have, 8 years, 10 years ago. I'm not going to, they're willing to spend double, triple for that great experience. So I've definitely seen that accelerated, certainly in the last 2, 3, 4 years.
Yeah, that's really interesting. You brought that up, the social media side of it, because, if you think about that timeline of the last decade, consumer preferences changing alongside the growth of social media. It's not anymore. You're just, obviously people want to make memories and have good experiences personally and with their family and colleagues, but now you have the extra layer of not only do I want to make a good memory, but I also want to share that memory. I also want to send it out to my social media network and get those likes and shares and all this stuff. So it's like this added layer of clout and, intrigue that you want for your social channel.
100%. It's also one word I learned in business school was FOMO, fear of missing out, and it's sort of like, I think it's like, hey, listen, these guys are going and experiencing great things. Well, I want to too, So it's like, and Instagram, obviously, magnifies and, kind of reimagines a lot of people's worlds to probably be more interesting than possible. But anyways, the end effect is that I think more people want those experiences, and they want to showcase the more lively parts of their lives. And that kind of relates back to not wasting a day if they don't have to. So.
Yeah, 100%. And if you zoom out even further, it is because of the internet that we're able to have these boutique experiences. The reason you
100%.
Wanted a Holiday Inn Express is because you knew what you were going to get in a city that you'd never been to. And you, like you're saying, you didn't want to waste a day. Now with the internet age and the information and crowdsourced information, you can visit the hotel before you even go to the city. And so now it's why would I go to a Holiday Inn Express or something where I know what to expect when I can expect something new, but I have the social proof that it's going to be something cool.
Great point. Absolutely. That's on target. I mean, those brands were created and they stick stringently to their brand standards because they haven't been able to shake the fact that that was very important for decades. Yeah. That brand consistency was the most important thing before TripAdvisor existed. And,
right.
It's now that you've got all these online travel agent channels and with reviews and TripAdvisor with reviews, you definitely don't need that commoditized experience anymore. And I think it's still, I still know people who focus on those brands and they do well, but I think that like you definitely don't need it, and we've seen even brands started to launch soft brands, and that's like their growing thing, or like their quote boutique hotel brands like AC by Marriott and stuff, but or Indigo by IHG, but which don't have true brand standards. They're like rough brand standards, really. But I completely agree with you that changed the world. We don't need it.
So on the topic of creating these truly unique experiences, I know that just looking through your portfolio, like the properties are gorgeous. The restaurants, the bars, the hotels.
Thank you.
What has been your kind of methodology and approach to creating hospitality experiences?
Yeah, so it's very different per hotel. So the first thing is I'll go back to like not to knock my childhood life experiences, because it was terrific, but to go back to my childhood life experience, it was very different. It was like very much like this standard like way of thinking, the way and saving costs. So I remember like my first hotel project, I was like hiring an interior designer. And I was like, I'm paying that much for that? And I remember one FF&E supplier was like, we'll do the interior design for you. Like, it's free if you buy the interior, the stuff for us. And I'm like, oh, that's a no-brainer. Why would anyone buy it for an interior designer? And obviously that was a while ago. And I've learned since then that that design and experience and obviously like branding it's just it's critical to these hotels. And so what we try to do when we look at a new project, and identity was the other one I was missing, is this critical. And when we were doing our projects now, we look at the property, we look at the bones, we look at the location, and then we spend a lot of time. I spend a month thinking through what is it that we want to achieve here. So who is our guest? So we think about imagining who's staying there and how are they going to enjoy it. And so, our hotels are fairly different. If, just to name 2 or 3 examples, Walker Tribeca was very much designed as a place to take you to what's next. So it's like meant to be, it's a smaller hotel room, but we have an incredible amount of amenity space. We have a rooftop bar, we have a cocktail lounge, we have a restaurant, we have a Blue Bottle coffee shop. We're going to have a, hopefully many Michelin star restaurant. They're also building on top of that. And then we have a lobby bar. We have a lot of F&B spaces, and none of them are huge. They're all kind of like intimate spaces in a way, 50, 100 people. And the hotel itself has, 171 rooms, but they're not very large. And the whole point is that and they were designed to be like a Walker loft. Like, you are a New Yorker, you're coming in, and if instead of like renting a loft on Airbnb or staying at your friend's place, or if you owned it, you now are staying at the Walker Hotel loft, that it was designed to look like a traditional loft in Walker, in Tribeca. And that was the experience, is like a sort of like a go guest with a lot of F&B, a lot of drinking venues, and a place to like take you to what's next. It's very different than our hotel, call it Maram in Montauk, which is, barefoot luxury. And that was a no-brainer to us, like just true luxury. It's like just very simply designed, open spaces. We didn't clutter things with tons of art. We just put beautiful plaster walls up, just a gorgeous bathroom with waterworks fixtures, and like just a simple bed. And like we wanted it to be very simple, because the beauty was looking out your window and seeing the ocean and the beach. And we kind of layered it on with like really great food. So we chose this, incredible, we actually suck out these great chefs from Argentina, which I could talk about if it's interesting, but the whole process there but we really wanted this outdoor asado grilled cooking and food that was very much a beach-like food that they didn't have in Montauk, and there's such a great hit there. But it's very simple and it's delicious, and it works really well with what we were trying to create there. And then just the last thing is like Journey East Hampton. East Hampton is a very different town than Montauk. Montauk's a beach town, beach vibes. It's lively. East Hampton is more of your stately estates on the ocean, near the ocean, very wealthy people. And the design of Journey East Hampton is very much like mimicking that lifestyle. It's very, very nice. It's very high-end design. It's very upscale. It's just a very beautiful place. We've layered on a lot of decor and decorations in the rooms and in the lobby and throughout the grounds. And so that was meant to mimic what you would be staying at in East Hampton, because that's the type of guests we're getting. Guests of those guests. That's why you come to East Hampton sometimes. So anyways, a little longer than I was expecting, but like that is generally each project we're trying to think about who is our guest and how can we best make their stay amazing, and memorable.
Yeah, that's super cool. I love the little quote you said of, design, experience, and identity is critical. And, I think for a lot of people, the design, the interior design, the architecture, and the identity, the branding, things like that are pretty seemingly like straightforward as far as how you approach them and how you get to good outcomes there, just because they're more tangible. But when you think of like an experience, it's not as tangible all the time. And I think, just the thought and effort you guys put into, you mentioned you think about it for months even of like, what's the experience that our guests are going to have here? And, I think that's really awesome and like special about your properties, how you approach that. I know one thing we talked about, prior to this recording even, you had mentioned that there's, you guys do a lot of programming and special events at your properties and to help kind of cultivate that experience. So I think that's one really unique thing you guys do. And I'd love to hear more about the programming of your spaces within your hotel and, why that's important to the overall experience.
Yeah, sure. I mean, I think what we wanted, I believe that I have a bit of a duty to make my guests' experience as great as possible. And I also think it's a privilege to be able to do that. Creating lifelong memories is something that I take seriously, and so like for me, these experiences are a way to build these lifelong memories for our guests. And like, and of course, sometimes they lead to press and PR, which is great. But ultimately what we're trying to do is get really loyal guests for our hotels and our brand as Bridgeton and something that we take really seriously. And in fact, we were just at our corporate retreat about 3 weeks ago. And that was like a big point of topic that, we're only going to focus on hotels where we can really make an incredible, like we can really create great guest experiences. So to answer your question, what are those experiences? Well, they're all over the place. I mean, frankly, we think like right now there's actually there's a meeting going on that I'm missing that is all about thinking through our monthly programming for like the Walker Tribeca and Walker Greenwich Village for the next couple months, and where we just think about, hey, what is it we want to do for what time period for what experience? So what are some of these examples to give concrete examples? Just recently, just right now, is like Breast Awareness Month, and that's like, that's a big deal, and like we're really big supporters of the cause and whatnot. We created a couple of guest rooms at Walker Tribeca that are entirely in pink. So we totally redid the room. Yeah. And everything in that room. And it's a fun room. It's really beautiful. It's actually really cool. We've had a bunch of Instagram influencers who've actually asked if they could take photo shoots there. And it's also for a good cause. So all the pros, a lot of it's mashed with a nonprofit world. And we're really big into that and giving back. And so anyone who stays in those rooms, 100% of those proceeds are going to the breast cancer awareness. And so we did that, and that's like a little fun thing. that people could stay in. A few months ago, we did something for Mother's Day where we brought in a really great tattoo artist from Miami that would do tattoos, either like permanent and non-permanent tattoos. And we set up this like cool little tattoo parlor within one of the hotel rooms, and caused it to be like a tattoo parlor, and all the proceeds went to some benefit. And
That's
then,
really cool.
that was fun.
Did you get a tattoo while they were there?
I got a little henna tattoo. so it was non-permanent. And we actually said that if you wrote like something about your mother, it was like actually a little bit more. So it was a fun thing. And then a couple other examples. We actually created a movie theater room. So we totally changed 2 bedrooms into like 2 personal movie theaters. Like we like little miniature movie theaters. We put everything from like the red velvet carpets, curtains, to a popcorn machine, to really great lounger chairs, so a really huge screen, and we just gave it away. It was first come first serve. It was just for fun, and like it was like it was so great. I think we've kept it up much longer than we expected, because people just had it. It was just like a fun thing to be able to pop in a movie if you were there by yourself or with a significant other and wanted to just have like a chill evening and watch a cool movie in a movie room. And we wanted to make sure the design of that room was beautiful and interesting, not just like here's a movie room with a couch and a TV. We actually wanted to feel like you're going to a movie theater, and it was like your own private movie theater. And so that was a really great thing we did there. And I can talk about a ton of experiences. The last one I'll say is because we just did it, is at Walker Greenwich Village. We worked with this amazing curator of like ballet, and he did a silent show with people in the theater and in the living space in a restaurant. And so these incredible artists did this whole like couple hour performance while people were sitting and eating and like chilling out in the lobby. And it was a complete surprise to people. And it was really cool. It was really great. And these were like truly amazing professionals. Brendan Fernandez is the name. And he was just an incredible artist. And we just think about these like every month. We're trying to think through other types of experiences like that are fun and unique. Of course, we layer that on with just basic experiences, that are like a daily ritual, like and like at Maram, we like, have, the kind of like the yoga and stuff like that people have, but we also match it with like weekly. We bring in some great speaker to come in that speaks about something in the world. Like we just had a futurist come in and talk about the future. And it's just like a couple times a week, we'll have a great speaker come in and talk about something, and everyone's just invited to join. And it's kind of a fun, cool thing to do. We're going to do a pottery making class. Just randomly, we'll be there on a Saturday, and whoever's around can just make some pot if they want and bring it home. And so and that's part of our kind of more of our maker type of program that we have in Maram. But we do that with like bead making and other types of jewelry. But anyways, I think so. We have so many experiences that we think about, and it's all a lot of fun. And the whole point of it is to be memorable and be unique.
That's really cool. I mean, one of the potential downsides to not just following a brand standard is that a lot of things can go wrong. There's a lot of details that you have to get just right, and it hasn't ever been done before. Have you guys had any projects that went terribly wrong at any point in the process?
Yeah, we have. We've had some projects that I'd say that like I don't know if it's terribly wrong, but we've had projects where we pulled. Like we're like, hey, we really want to do this, but maybe we can't do it. And so we pulled the plug on it. For one reason or the other. You're right. And it's hard because we're not trying to do the same thing over and over again. We're kind of experiencing it. Sometimes we partner with people that we're like, okay, maybe this shouldn't work out. One thing we did, I'll tell you, we did it, but it was like a little stressful. Is we did something called a day in their shoes, and it was about guests being able to jump on a bike and following New York bike messengers. So that's like a big thing. Delivery and bike messaging is like a big thing.
Cool.
And these bicycle riders, you see them, they're zipping through in and out of traffic. They're crazy. They're like awesome drivers. And so we were like, oh, we're going to do a day in their shoes. And it was like more than a day in the shoes. It was like, we were going to do it for like a month, and where guests can line up and sign up and then follow a bike messenger around. And they would start at one hotel and end at the other hotel and back. But it was like kind of a fun way of experiencing New York while the bike messenger showed them around town. And we were about to launch. And right when we were about to launch, we were talking about it to the company, and our general counsel is like, what are you guys doing? Hold on. We're like, Jeff, what are you talking about? Like, it's gonna be so much fun, so great. And he's like, whoa, do you got insurance for this? Like, what if someone trips and falls or following a bike messenger throughout the city? Like, really? Like, we're like,
what could go wrong?
Got it. Like, we got to like, what could go wrong? We're like, okay. He's like, you absolutely cannot do this. I'm like, okay, got it. So we did it, but we had to get insurance for it. So, and we had to like have these waivers signed and all this other legal stuff that we fine print. And like, we're like, all right, but it was one of these things that we had to delay it for a few days actually. So, until we figured that all out. But yeah, so those types of experiences do happen, and from time to time. But it's fun. It's all fine. Like we all work through it from time to time. But that was a fun event.
So one other important piece that I know we've talked about and you brought up a little bit in our conversation is, to create like an experience like the ones that you have at your properties and your F&B outlets and all these places. Like, obviously it takes a great team to do that. And not only a team of like, from the development standpoint, when you're actually developing the hotel and property, but
yeah,
also, obviously your team and the culture and the atmosphere you're creating on site. And so how do you how do you pick and choose the vendors, the consultants, the partners, the team members you work with, and then really like go about curating and building that like a team, so to speak?
Yeah. So it I would say it takes energy and effort. And the main reason is because for me, these are my most important projects. I mean, this is what I live and breathe. And if I feel that the vendors and the partners I have in these projects don't think of it as just as important to them and just as life altering for them, then I won't use them. Like, I probably shouldn't say this, but if I'm getting pitched, and I call them empire builders. If I'm being pitched by someone, I remember, one restaurateur who we were thinking about partnering with, and he was like, I'm doing this project here and I'm doing that project here, and I got 3 projects over there, and I got 5. And I'm like, wow, I mean, like, you're busy. Like, you're not going to give a crap about my project. I'm just like one of the next 20 projects you're doing. I'm clearly not that important to you, and so I call them empire builders. And so this is the reason why, like, I wouldn't use David Rockwell for interior design. It's not that I don't think he's incredibly talented. And I think all these folks are really talented. I just need a very talented partner and group that cares enough about my project. Like, I want it to be studio changing, for someone. I want it to be the highlight of their career today, or close to it, or important enough to them that they're going to spend energy and effort on it. Maybe it doesn't have to be studio changing, but like, that's ideal. It's a catch-22, right? Because obviously I don't want to go too early in someone's career where they haven't been able to prove that they can handle it. But at the same time, I don't want them to be so discovered that, like, now the main principles aren't working on my project.
Right.
Like, now they have like this deep bench of 50 people, and I've got, I potentially can get the C team, once the A team sign me up. And so that's something that's really, truly important to me. And that's one of my biggest things is really discovering folks that, frankly, are maybe at the peak of their careers, but unknown. maybe not as known as some firms. So that's kind of how I try to choose. And it depends on, I'm being vague because we're talking about like, probably 10 different types of folks. But when it comes to certain things, I know some people are just better at it than others. I'll pick on interior design, for instance. I found that I made the mistake of hiring interior designers whose projects all look very similar. And when they pitched me, they're like showing me design documents that are much different. And I'm like, okay. And they pitched me that they could do the design that I like. And then, ultimately I hire them and they came back with the design that looks like the projects they've done in the past. And so, and so what I've learned is that, at least with interior design, that like folks are sometimes like they're really good at their craft, and their craft is a certain way. And so for Walker Tribeca, we used 4 different interior designers because of this experience where I'm like, you know what, like I want an incredible cocktail lounge that looks like it's been around since the Victoria era. I want everyone that walks in there to think that I took a sledgehammer and hit that door and broke the brick down and I discovered this room, which is partially correct, actually. So we did do that. But like, but yeah, there's truth to that. But like, yeah, of course, we had to put in new floors, for instance. And those new floors, they came from the 1800s, from some old building that we were able to buy. And that was because I hired this incredible interior designer named Johnny McCormick, it's a small shop. It's just him, and his wife. And he's in Brooklyn, and that's his craft. I mean, he's done a dozen incredible bars, mostly in Brooklyn, and his home that is gorgeous. But they're all from that Victoria era. And like, that's what he does. That's what he's incredible at. And there's no way anyone can replicate what he does, And so for the different areas of the hotel that I wanted to look a certain way, I look for that person that's great at that craft. And I'll tell you, it's a lot of work. It's a lot of work because most people, when I say, hey, I'm hiring an interior designer, that interior designer, take any great hotel, they hire an interior designer to do the bar, to do the restaurant, to the rooms, the lobby, and the rooftop. And guess what? They all look the same. They're just like slight derivatives from one another. And that's cool. It doesn't mean it's bad. They may all look great, but personally, I didn't want that experience in my hotels. In the Walker Tribeca, I should say. For that one, I wanted different spaces that look different.
Yeah, that's so cool. I love that. And I think that's a really smart way to approach things. And it sounds like you've learned kind of from experience a little more how that needs to look in the real world. So the results are outstanding.
Thank you. Yeah. No, I learned my lesson on that one. That specific designer, I'm like, hey, this doesn't work out. This isn't looking the way my things look like. And he's like, okay, I can redo it. He redid it. It looked very similar to the way he originally did it. I'm like, I don't think you're getting what I want here. I'm like, I don't want it to look contemporary. Like, that's not the design that you're showing me on the mood boards. Like, that's not what we talked about 20 times. And the guy couldn't get it. I usually give people multiple chances, and finally we just like had to let them go. And we tossed that all up and started from zero. But it's these projects are really important. They're the diamond that we're creating.
Do you have any projects currently in the works or in the pipeline that you'd be able to share with us?
So I have a really great project I'm working on. I can't name it, but it is a beautiful piece of land in Napa Valley, Sonoma County, and in north of San Francisco. That is going to be this incredible indoor outdoor experience with talking about experiences. I mean, we are layering on the guest experience here. You could do everything from being on the water to like hiking to like outdoor, bars, and like picking your own, picking some of your own ingredients from the garden to have it cooked, maybe even being able to fish and have the cook, cook it for you like a pan lunch. It's it's going to be, we're going to have like some, we're not going big into glamping tents, but this place is zoned to have a few. And so we're going all in on the glamping tents. So there's some cool hotel rooms on site, which we're gutting and renovating and making beautiful. But the expansion space, because it's hard to build a lot of rooms in that area, the expansion space for us is to create like really incredible glamping tents. And so I don't want to just create a glamping tent. I don't like that concept in general. I mean, I shouldn't say I don't like it. I think I like it, but for me personally, to serve my guests, I want it to be super luxurious. I want it to be a home. And so we're trying to design these homes to be large and have a living room and a bedroom and its own private bathroom. I don't want it to feel and have it be as soundproof as possible, which is really hard sometimes to be soundproof in these tents. But we're figuring out all these challenges all in once. We're working with code and zoning and everything else. But that's a really that's our next project. We're kind of currently in the stages of finalizing a contract to buy the property, which is why I can't chat about it. But we're very close, and that's going to be a super exciting West Coast project for us. Drive to destination resort, which is what we're focused on these days, and really being able to craft a lifelong memory for every guest that steps on the property. That's like really important to me.
That's really exciting. I can't wait to see that project take shape.
Yeah, no, thank you. Yeah, that's going to be great. So we're excited about that. And, we're also working on a potential, hotel in New Orleans as well. Again, it's early. That would be a Walker Hotel expansion for us. So we're trying to expand that brand to other locations as well, if the bones of the building fit what we're doing.
Well, as far as, the final question we always like to ask, if you have any thoughts that you'd like to share related to like the future of the industry, is there anything that you're, kind of looking forward to or that's on your mind and you'd like to explore further? Or you're just kind of keeping your eye on it regarding, the future of hospitality, travel, or real estate?
Yeah, I mean, I think that outside of what we chatted about around like kind of experiences and people wanting to spend more. And I think that accelerates. I think that gets bigger and bigger. I think the times of a wasted evening at a commoditized product are more going away. I do think that people start getting sick of the more Airbnb experiences, which really don't have an experience. I think those kind of replace the Holiday Inn Expresses in the long run. But I think that like, for me, I could see a way where hotels get back more of the share that online travel agents take by better incentivizing people to book direct. And I don't know when that will happen, but I hope it happens soon because we could charge a lot less, if our expense load wasn't so high to these aggregators. And I do have a feeling that people value points less now than our parents do. So points are important for sure. But I do see it over the coming decades that they become less important. So if I were to say some, aggressive thing about the future, I do think that like, people care less about points as they care, and which touches on the fact that I think people are willing to pay more for experience. They care more about just staying in the place they want to stay. They don't want just that commoditized room. And so points don't matter as much anymore, and so you may start seeing these like Marriott's, really, and you've already seen it, just becoming more and more independent in a way. And they're just more like a booking engine for their independent hotels.
Definitely. Well, Atit, I thank you so much for taking time to chat with us today. If people want to find out more about Bridgeton, how can they do that?
So they can go on Bridgeton.com in about 2 months because in December we're launching our new website, which will we actually took it down. Bridgeton.com right now is mostly about our hotels. So they can go to Bridgeton.com right now, see some of our hotels, some of our restaurants. But a much grander Bridgeton.com is being launched in December 2021. And it'll talk more about our larger business and about more of our projects and how we think about things and whatnot. But that's a great place to look.
Awesome. Well, Atit, thank you so much again. And we can't wait to see every thing you guys have planned and it start to be developed.
Thank you so much, guys. Really great to connect.
Thanks.
I hope you enjoyed today's episode of the Future Hospitality Podcast. If you enjoyed today's topic and episode, please leave us a review. If you'd like to learn more about Longitude, you can visit longitudebranding.com to see our portfolio of design work, read our Insights blog, and learn more about our team. You can also find us on Instagram and Facebook by searching for Longitude Branding.